I guarantee that you've all been in at least one ice-breaking scenario. And I'm not talking about a natural situation where you just get to know the other person. Now, what I'm talking about is a class you took where the teacher forces you to do something awkward in order to quote-unquote get to know one another. And man, the worst one is where you go around in a circle and have to repeat back what the last people said before you. That one's brutal. But you know, one icebreaker I actually kinda like is talking about what 3 things you'd bring to a deserted island. And what do people say? I wanna bring my PlayStation, some weed, and McDonald's. That's cool and all, but why are we forgetting about our essentials here? Why are we forgetting about water, man? Water is that person who you know you should date, who's really good for you, but just doesn't capture that excitement. But I mean really, we could survive roughly 8 to 21 days without food, but roughly 2 to 3 days without water. It's essential not only for us, but for a lot of what's around us. Now there's one philosopher though, whose obsession with water might have gone a little too far, and that's Thales of Miletus. Thales is often called the first philosopher, but that's a pretty sus phrase. I mean, after all, what about Eastern philosophers? What about philosophers that we don't even know about? What even is a philosopher? Well, it seems as though this title just refers to him being the first to break away from simply using mythology to explain the world, and his attempt to use empiricism and rationalism instead. Thales was born around 625 BC, but like everything involving the pre-Socratics, take this with a grain of salt. Just for reference though, Socrates is said to have been born around 470 BC, so that's roughly 155 years before Socrates. He's obviously from Miletus, an ancient Greek city, but it's said that the guy got out a lot, visiting Egypt and Babylon, which always impresses me, hearing about how people from so long ago were able to even travel like this. I don't know, maybe I'm biased by all these modern conditions. Now, like many early thinkers, he was a guy interested in many different fields, including philosophy, astronomy, mathematics, and even engineering. There's this story given actually by Plato in one of his dialogues, where Thales is walking, staring up at the stars, doing his astronomy, and he falls into a well because he wasn't looking where he was going. Some girl comes up and is like, "Yo, you dumb." Okay, she didn't say that part. You're so eager to learn about what's up there in the heavens that you aren't even noticing what's down here. But his astronomy wasn't just, are you a Pisces? I could never date a Pisces because they're so two-faced. Although it would be pretty funny if Thales was an astrology and crystals fanatic. He actually was able to use his astronomy to get rich. According to Aristotle, he somehow was able to tell from astronomy that olive crops would do super well. So he made a little investment and got a big return on his olives. Hey, don't ask me what happened, I'm just going off Aristotle. Now, I want to save how he died for the end of the video because it's kind of ironic. It's Shakespearean, if I may be so pretentious. But for now, let's actually get into his philosophy. Thales is most known for his belief that water is at the heart of everything. According to Diogenes Laertius, his doctrine was that water is the universal primary substance, and that the world is animate and full of divinities. We'll get to the divinities part secondly, but let's first focus on this idea of water being the universal primary substance. A lot of pre-Socratic philosophers were interested in metaphysics. Specifically, what is at the root of everything? What is the nature of reality? Thales comes in first and says it's water, and Aristotle believes he came to this conclusion by not relying on mythology like everyone else, but rather by being philosophical about it. He may have gotten this idea from seeing that the nourishment of all things is moist, and that even the hot itself comes to be from this and live on this. Getting this idea from this consideration, and also because the seeds of all things have a moist nature, and water is the principle of the nature of moist things. Now we may point and laugh at the dumb old guy for his backwards belief, but think about how revolutionary this must have been. If he truly was the first to break from mythology, he had to first reject the account of nature given by these stories held sacred by the culture at the time. He had to go against the grain and trust in himself and his ability to reason and observe. Obviously, I'm not saying the guy is right, but I personally want to give him some credit here. Although he did say the entire earth rests on water, which, okay, I can't try and defend that. And besides, although water isn't the basic principle of all things, it's still pretty important regardless, and unfortunately many people forget that and get dehydrated, especially during the summer. Look, all I'm saying is, if I ever open a bar or club, I'm gonna have a wax figure of Thales next to a cooler of free water. Now on to his next point about divinity in all things. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot I could find that elaborates on this. However, if I am understanding this correctly, we see some similarities in Spinoza's metaphysics. And as promised, we gotta talk about the way he dies. According to Diogenes Laertius, he died watching some athletic games as a result of heat stroke. I kid you not, Aquaman over here dies due to a heat stroke. Hey, obviously all death is sad, I mean no disrespect, but come on. It's a little ironic. I like his tomb though. Apparently his tomb had the inscription, "Here in a narrow tomb great Thales lies. Yet his renown for wisdom reached for the skies." That's a poetic send-off for the guy considering how revolutionary he was. I remember asking my philosophy professor if Thales had any practical value, and he was like, nah, not really. And that may be true, but it's arguably because of his break from mythology that we get those philosophers with more practical philosophy. Anyways guys, let me know what you think of Hydro Man here. Do you like him? Do you hate him? Does his existence remind you to stay hydrated? Let me know below. If you enjoyed the video, check out our other videos. And like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And with that, I wish you all a beautiful rest of your day.